So again, welcome, a warm welcome for everyone to join our webinar today, which will be about standard essential patents and the Internet of Things. And I do have the honor today to interview two experts from Nordic Semiconductor. I will, in a few minutes, introduce my two interview speakers of today. But let me start with a few slides to kick off the topic and to get everyone on board what we will discuss today. So I think for many of you, you know that the vision of IoT is that things like vehicles, roadways, machines, containers, ships, even refrigerators will be constantly exchanging information. In order to do that, we need interconnectivity, and in order to allow interconnectivity, we need technology standards. However, many of these standards that enable communication of IoT systems are patented with so-called standard essential patents. And to just give you some examples: 3G, 4G, 5G, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, but also in the world of video coding, we have a lot of patents that are essential to these standards, meaning everyone who's using these standards have to license in these standard essential patents. And that may potentially, of course, create economic risks for those people who are manufacturers and using IoT sensors in their products to have, for example, machines in a factory, refrigerators, smart TVs in home appliances, but of course also vehicles, roadways, or even in healthcare devices connected. So what I would like to start with, to have a look at the landscape of patents that are potentially essential and how that developed over time. This slide shows you the number of declared standard essential patents as to declaration date and as to standards generation. And you see since 2016, we have a lot of patents coming in declared to be essential for 5G. Again, let me point out the numbers that we look at here are of course only alleged potentially essential patents, meaning claimed essential by those companies that make those declarations. However, if you look at the numbers as of today, or as of September actually, we have over 37,000 declared patents for 5G only, and we're talking about patent families. 18,000 or more than 18,000 of these families have been granted and are active as of today. And 14,000 of these declared patents have at least been filed in the US and European Patent Office. If we add to that number of 5G patents all the declared patents for 4G, we have over 20,000 families granted, active, at least in the US and Europe, filed and granted. And we all know that very likely only a certain percentage, maybe 10, 20, or 30% of these declared patents are in fact essential. And even if it's 10%, we have over 2,000 families standard essential. So a lot of patents that are relevant or that may become relevant for this. Another standard that will be very important for interconnectivity will be Wi-Fi. And this year, we have seen the ratification of Wi-Fi 6. And here in the statistics, we actually look at the number of contributions coming in for the different Wi-Fi technologies. And you see that there's a lot more contributions from Wi-Fi 6 compared to Wi-Fi 5. So a lot more technology. And we do see that already Wi-Fi 7 is starting. And also here, everyone knows that we have a lot of standard essential patents for the different Wi-Fi generations as well. Another example is the world of video coding. Also here, displays will be integrated into devices and are important for IoT because our world becomes a lot more visual. We are transmitting decoded and encoded videos from A to B. And here, one important example of the standard is HEVC and VVC. And here also VVC just has been ratified, and we do see again a lot of more contributions coming in for the newest generations of video coding as to this statistic. And last but not least, another example of the QI standard. QI standard is a wireless charging standard. So if you have a later generation of a smartphone, you can recharge your smartphone without plugging in any electricity plug. You put it on the QI standard charging field, for example, in a car or on your office desk, and then you can recharge your phone. And also here we do see an increasing number of patents potentially essential for the QI standard. This is a cumulative number over time. We are over 1,000 patents that have been declared essential. There's even a patent pool here that gives you information on verified essential patent from the QI standard. And that shows we have a lot of patents, and a lot of patents could, of course, potentially be leading to a lot of discussions. We do see that in the smartphone world, there were a lot of litigation discussions about, licensing, Wi-Fi licensing, 3G, 4G. And also now, just recently, we do see a lot of negotiations and even litigation in the automotive space, maybe the first IoT use case. But there are a lot more IoT use cases that will come and will be important in the future or are already important today. And therefore, I'm super happy to now start an interview with two experts in this area. We have Marianne Frydenlund. She's the legal director of Nordic Semiconductor. And we also have Svein-Egil Nielsen, who's the CTO of Nordic Semiconductor. And I would love to start with you, Svein-Egil, to understand a little bit more about what Nordic Semiconductor is doing. How can we understand you as a chip manufacturer? What is it? In an elevator pitch, how would you introduce Nordic Sem to everyone here?
So Nordic Semiconductor is a medium-sized semiconductor vendor that specializes in low-power wireless and embedded processing. We think that we serve the IoT market with short-range devices, and more recently, as of the last 5 years, invested significantly into cellular IoT. We do both chips and modules, but of course, we provide extensive amount of embedded software, support, tools for everything to build any kind of device the customer wants. We're around 800 people. Around 800 people, or closing in on 900, I think, right now. And, around 600 of those work in R&D. So approximately, close to 30% of our revenue goes to R&D.
Very interesting. So very R&D focused, a lot of technology in there. Since our webinar today is about IoT, could you tell us a little bit more about those IoT use cases your products, your chips are used for today, but maybe also in the future? How can we, give us some examples of our IoT use cases that you serve?
I'd like to think that we serve everything, all use cases for IoT, of course, with some caveats. If you think about, there's a lot of talk about everything's going to be connected, everything is IoT, and there's a lot of talk about it. But in reality, what you're really seeing today is that everything, pretty much everything, gets connected in some sort, shape, or form. That could be either cabled or wirelessly or in any form. But most devices will be connected if they're not already to serve some kind of purpose. So when you think about what we do, we work with companies who monitors energy consumption, meters and those kind of spaces. We work with customers that make medical devices that in some way can, prevent or measure or find new ways of solving health problems. We do serve, simple things like, if you go into Oslo, for instance, in the city I live, you'll see those garbage cans. They proudly pronounce that this garbage can will only be emptied when it's full, right? That's another example of an IoT device that, guess now, we don't have to send out the garbage man to pick up half-empty garbage cans. There's a couple of million lines of code in that stupid garbage can, right? But that's just an example of a great IoT product. I think that, look around you, and you could argue that we always said that some of the things we did is the Internet of My Things, because you connect your own sensors to yourself or to your cell phone. But in the end of the thing, it's the variety of IoT use cases is mind-boggling. There's just so many things that someone want to connect. Right now, we're looking at, and I'm just looking at the specific areas. I'm not saying that Nordic is necessarily in that product or not, but we look at products like COVID-19 test systems, right? You don't want to have to touch someone being in that space. So you want to do those wirelessly and remotely. You want to measure, for instance, pulse oximetry without being connected. See, a lot of things going on where remote patient monitoring becomes very relevant because you don't want to, again, touch people or be close to them. There is such a great variety of use cases. And I somehow think, and I say a little bit, the last 2 years, it's not so cool to be doing IoT as doing ML and AI. But there is really I call it the quiet revolution of IoT devices, where everywhere around us, everything gets connected, although we think about it or not. So from Nordic Semiconductor, we like to serve all use cases, that be short-range connectivity or long-range connectivity. We don't really care. Just want to make sure that any device that needs and wants can be connected in the whole internet and cloud connectivity.
Yeah, that sounds super interesting, Svein-Egil. Just to get a better understanding, so about who are your clients, or who do you sell your chips to, and how does the value chain work typically?
We work with electronic makers that want to build products. Those are our customers, but in the way we approach these customers is generally our products go through distribution channels. We work with distribution partners and our own sales force to address thousands of customers we serve, and those are electronic producers, small and large. Sometimes we deal directly with the OEMs, and sometimes it deals with subcontractor. It's a big set of customers that is served through channels and through directly, and really anyone who want to make electronics, I say you can call us. That's our customers, really, the companies who make those gadgets or things or whatever you want to make.
Understood. You said in the beginning you are 900 people, 600 in R&D, so that's a big focus in R&D. A lot of your costs go into R&D or your revenue. So how do you for yourself and the company, how do you predict what will be important in the future? Where do you guys invest in right now? What are the hot topics? Even though maybe you feel like IoT is not on the list of hot topics anymore, but what's hot for you guys? What can we expect?
When we look at our product lines, we do short range, a lot of Bluetooth, but also Zigbee and Thread. We think that market is still continue to grow significantly as we move forward. For instance, Bluetooth, which we do tremendously well in. The numbers I hear, there's around 5 billion devices being built every year for Bluetooth. That's a combination of all technologies. So that's an area we just continue to invest, because we think there's a lot of road to go, and also other short-range technologies. But if you think about in the last, and I just go a few years back, the biggest investment we as a company has done was to invest into cellular IoT, utilizing the new technologies that came in the specification recently, LTM and NB-IoT, and serve our same customer base, but with a different technology that is now cellular based and provides an opportunity to build battery operated sensors connected to base stations and to the cellular networks. That's been an investment of more than $100 million in the last 5 years. And we are now at the stage where we're starting to reap the benefits of that investment.
Interesting. Very good. But that brings me directly, I think, also to the topic that we want to discuss more today. So you said Bluetooth is big. You say LTE, LTE-M, NB-IoT is big. Those different standards, of course, serve different use cases, and you are agnostic to those. However, what is, of course, very different, I understand, is the landscape of standard essential patents, or more how you can license those. So I know also you, Svein-Egil, you have had experience, or still have experience there. Could you tell the audience a bit more like the difference, let's say, comparing Bluetooth to LTE when it comes to licensing?
So I used to be on the board of Bluetooth special interest groups. I know a lot about Bluetooth. And of course, if you look at a standard that has actually been wildly successful, it is Bluetooth. And it's been successful for many reasons. And one of the reasons people may suspect it's been successful is because the IPR rules or limitations are so simple. Every Bluetooth SIG members, of which there are around 40,000 companies, needs to sign a license agreement that provides a cross license to everyone else. So I don't think there's a lot of standard essential patents that go into Bluetooth, but no one really counts those or care about them, because there's really no way, unless you're standing outside the Bluetooth SIG, to monetize them. So it's an example of a standard which we work many at that is brilliantly simple. You don't have to think about it. It just works. So when we entered the space of cellular, there's been a steep curve of us to understand the standard essential patent landscape there, which is very different and how to say, very murky. murky waters. When I go back 5 years, and we discussed this 5 years when we started an investment, I thought that at this moment, this would be have been in place and solved, and we would have a simple way of managing standard essentials for LTM and NB-IoT. 5 years later, we are nowhere near. We haven't even solved any problem for our customers yet. And that is, it's an unfortunate situation. And some of what happens is that although Bluetooth is maybe one end of the scale, right? Short range technologies and cellular on the other end, there are also other technologies in this space that operates with much simpler IPR considerations. And, there is, if you're sitting as a customer, you will have to consider what technology you use, and IPR does become a concern unless there are good solutions out there. And unfortunately for cellular, those solutions are non-existent.
Interesting, and that I think opens directly the door to ask a little bit more in detail how the licensing of SEPs currently works or should work in the future. So Marianne, you as the legal director of Nordic Sem, to your experience as of today, how does the licensing work for IoT use cases? For example, do you have a license? Do your customers have a license? And LiDAT, how is it working?
Thank you, Tim. Can you hear me fine? I have had some technical issues. Okay, perfect.
We hear you perfectly.
That's great. No, so as Svein-Egil said, he hoped it would be solved. I have worked extensively with my SEP team internally in Nordic before we launched our product to try to get all licenses in place, because we want to make it easy for our customers. Nordic Semiconductor is all about the ease of use, and we want to continue as we have always done, which is to include all IPR in our products when you sell them. And we sought out a few SEP owners. We also had discussions with a patent pool, but there are no programs available to license on our component level, and our component is a 10 by 15 millimeter, if you can see it here, system on chip. So system in package with our own system on chip inside. So there's just no way we could, continue as we have always done. And we have tried to be very transparent about that towards our customers.
Understood. So just to repeat, there's right now no one is having any license in you and your customers, so in the whole IoT world that you know of.
Well, for our customer base, so let's look at our customer base, and Svein-Egil touched that. Everyone who wants to make a product with connectivity is our customer. It's our potential customer, and our module is application agnostic, so it can be used in asset trackers or smart meters or a sensor or whatever. So the customers that we interact with, they often have questions and they assume that we have all IPR included. And we assume that they do not have any licenses, because there are no licensing platform unless you're a car manufacturer or you sell mobile phones, right? So there are no programs available at the moment for an IoT product. And also, in my opinion, to go after each use case, to go after all the companies that make asset trackers, there are going to be thousands of them. It's going to be a hard process for the SEP owners to go after each and every one of these customers. And it's also very, it's an interesting point, because one of the major point that the SEP owners say that, well, we will not license you, but we will license your customers, and thereby you will have a have-made right to your products. None of our customers are licensed. So where are our have-made rights? There are none. So that's where we are actually at the moment.
Okay, that sounds complicated, especially, as Svein-Egil said, there are so many use cases out there. Having a solution for everyone seems also maybe not the most efficient way. So in your opinion, the use case-based license model is not going to be efficient for the IoT?
No, absolutely not. It's not going to scale into the world of IoT. And there's you might say that look at the small startups. You know, if there's a company, 5 people who want to make a smart sensor, they're not going to know about IPR. And you have all the use cases that you started to introduce to us in the beginning. The refrigerator, everybody now expects their home and their appliances to be smart, but what about the lawnmower? Maybe they don't have all IPR experts in their company who knows about connectivity. So all these appliances and our products that are around us that now are going to be connected, these companies do not specialize in standard or standard essential patents. So it's going to be difficult for them to navigate, and it's going to be difficult for the SEP owners to follow up on this and have a program ready for all the applications there.
And I mean, I think I mentioned that in the beginning. Probably one of the first use cases I would call IoT is the use case of the auto industry. A situation where even cars are mandatory have to license because they have eCall, which is a mandatory standard, and it builds upon 3G, 4G. In the beginning, it looked good. We had a platform, we had licensors, a lot of licensors sign up, and we also had the first car manufacturers that signed a license in the Avanci pool. Yep. However, now we have disputes. We have litigation, in particular in Germany, but also worldwide. The licensors are litigating outside, or are litigating against car manufacturers and their suppliers. So there is a lot of tension right now, a lot of discussion, but of course it could also lead to some decisions, court decisions that may solve things in the future. So how do you see this? Could the auto industry be the industry that solves this because it's just the first use case and we will see litigation and somehow come up with a solution? Or what do you foresee here?
Well, it's an interesting question, and I think that the first thing that comes to mind is, do we have time to wait for this? No, we don't. So, I mean, IoT is so much faster than the car industry, and that's going to drag on in courts for years. I think that, I know it's also applying all of these court decisions onto the variety of IoT use cases is not going to be that easily just cross using those court decisions either. So unless the decisions or the outcome of those litigations are that you have to license all that wants to implement the standard, you need to license them on a FRAND rate, and you need to license on a component level, which in our opinion is the right thing to do, because then you really license the patents on its own merits and scope. Then if that's not the case, then it's not going to solve anything for the IoT.
Understood. Interesting.
It's also just it's just more confusing. You talked about Germany. I think that's just causing a patchwork of more or different interpretations of what maybe used to be some kind of directions from previous law cases. So that's it's not very easy to navigate for an in-house counsel and get some advice out of that.
Yeah, there have been a lot of decisions, not really in favor of the licensees, more in favor of the licensors recently. So yeah, it remains interesting to observe that. But just to your opinion, Marianne, we know there will be a lot more licensees as what we know from the smartphone industry. I mean, everyone knows the smartphone manufacturers. There's just a handful, and even the auto industry and the suppliers. Yeah, we know those guys, maybe a few hundred. But thinking about IoT, we have so many more licensees, and patent pools typically are created in exactly those environments where it's not efficient to negotiate a license with each and in every individual company. It's probably not efficient. So it sounds like a pool could be a solution, but how should that pool be set up in your opinion?
It's definitely a benefit to have a pool of licensors for a licensee. It's obviously it's very costly to negotiate with every single SEP owners that are out there. And it also gives you a kind of an overview of who's out there, you know? So that's one of the questions that my customers have. They come to us and they say, so if you don't have a license, who should I talk to? And we could, you know, and who has patents? Can you send me an overview of all the patents that are there for 4G? And maybe IPlytics would have a better overview of those patent owners and patents that are there. But to us, it's just, we could say, you know, you can look at this pool, you can look at that pool. It will not give you a total picture, but you know, that's at least a start. But I think it's a benefit to have licensors pulled up, but they should really, it needs to be friend. They cannot hide under the fact that they're, you know, we're just representing the SEP owners. Everyone committed to that friend promise when they entered into the standard setting organization, as did Nordic Semiconductor when we have contributed to, you know, Bluetooth and 4G and all the standards that we have contributed to. So that's a given. It has to be fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory. They should also license component manufacturers like us, and you know, they have to be transparent. They need to come up with if it's going to be, I think it's a very long way to go before we can license the module and our system in package. And if they're going to find solutions and continue to license verticals like they have done for the connected cars, they really need to speed up their process and be fast in finding new platforms for license, because it's going to move fast. So yeah, and then yeah, so that's kind of the main things I think.
That is interesting, and that brings me to something that we wanted to do here during this webinar. We have pre-created a live poll, so we have around 100 registrants and participants here in the live webinar right now. And we have a question to you, and it would be great if you could answer as to your opinion, as you know, what you feel like for your company or for everyone we represent. And I will start this live poll now, so please do answer that question with yes and no, and I will also read the question for you. So our question is, will patent pools, despite the existing pool offerings, be the likely best solution to organize efficient licensing of SEPs for IoT verticals to decrease negotiation costs in the future? So will that be the main, or will that be the major solution how we can handle all these licensees? So, you know, thinking about any kind of pool that could exist. We do have people answering, that is great. So it is a lot in favor of pools, as I see right now. So 86%, 81%, very good. Yeah, 76%, 2/3 at least. Let's wait a few more minutes. We have about 42 people that answered the question. Great. So if everyone, I think we gave enough time, a minute to answer this. Not so difficult, but great. Thank you. I think interesting. It's you know, it's the majority for sure who believe pools will be the solution in the future. But of course it's difficult. And we have a second question that is even a bit more tricky. I'm really honest here with you. And this will be about the royalties. And I think we discussed that already. As to your opinion, you would like to see a pool that allows the licensing on component level. And on component level, that would mean, of course, that you have a license, and anyone you sell your products to, that what they do with the chip and what they do with the standard, what use case they ever want to do with, they can do it with the license, right? So in a way, we would have to think about a price, right? And there might be, of course, different use cases that at least certain people believe have different value. Maybe the IoT standard in the car has a higher use case than in the refrigerator, because the refrigerator just allows you to switch on and off the light in the refrigerator, or there's a sensor for the temperature, maybe, more simple stuff than navigating a car to traffic. So the next question will be exactly about this. How much do you believe for an IoT component level standard, how much we should charge? And let's take the example of the cellular space, 3G, 4G, 5G. What do you think per component should be the price? And we have created different ranges, starting from 0.5 cent US dollars to $30 US, which could be, $30 US, $15 US is the Avanci offering right now. There's different negotiation about the share of Avanci, but maybe for cars, we are around, maybe 25 to $30 US for this.
It's a very interesting question, Tim. I'd just like to provide a little bit of a thought process. So when we make our modules, I'll put double-digit man years on to save 10 cents. That's how hard we would work to save 10 cents. So when you add a couple of dollars, there's nothing fair, reasonable anymore. From an effort point of view, we'll spend a lot of money saving 10 cents.
Understood. So in your opinion, Svein-Egil, would even 50 cents US dollars be too much?
You know what? I think that it's not worth it, but I think that's a number that, is reasonable to make a deal. Let's just think about the numbers. You mentioned cars, let's say $30. A product that typically our customer maybe costs $100, and my module may cost like 10 or something like that. So if you just put that and do the maths, right? Why would they pay $30 for a car that's worth $100,000? That sounds a good deal versus half a dollar for a $100 product. These are low-cost products, and I think that they have much higher volumes than the cars, and there will be significant royalties to gain anyway, even if the rates were low.
So,
but I'm saying I feel a little unfair when people want to charge multiple dollars, and I spent, endless amount of resources to save 10 cents.
Yeah, understood. The question is, to get an understanding of what you mean is, there's actually, thinking about cars, there are not so many cars out there, right? Especially comparing cars with smartphones, the number of cars is quite low. When you think about IoT, as you said yourself, the use cases are endless. So in your opinion, having a very low per component price, just a pure number, would make it worthwhile? Could that be an economic logic to kind of incentivize the SEP owners to think about lower licenses?
I think right now they're leaving money on the table. Right now they could be collecting reasonable royalties, but right now they're not getting anything because they haven't made programs that are attractive. So it's maybe better to get a small number multiplied by a high factor than getting, a high factor multiplied by 0. So I think make it reasonable and you'll make money.
And could it even be, thinking even one step ahead, you are the CTO, you have the overview about R&D. Let's say there is no solution in the upcoming years, right? And you said you invested a lot in that LTE technology. Would that really also influence you maybe to think of, hey, if that IP topic is not solved, then it's quite a risky bet for me to further invest in this, because I don't know about the future and if my product will be sold and if there will be litigation and that will be costly. Would you even think about, shifting investments in different directions, or is that too far?
No, we would do that. We would shift resources to where we find the business is best developed. Now, we do think that this is a problem that will be solved on the cellular IT. I'll take a clear example. We're looking into 5G and the new 5G technologies and what they would do for IoT. When you show me charts that shows that there are 10 times as many patents in 5G, I'm thinking, is that going to solve the problem? If they're going to have the same problem, people expect more patent royalties for 5G. Should we do a 5G specific technology for cellular IT, like a future technology? Or we hold back and say we're happy with what we have. there is limits to how much you can put a burden on an industry before they don't want to go for any further, clearly.
I mean, in the end, of course, you may think about use cases where you do need the long distance, right? I see some use cases. Let's think about Wi-Fi 6. I heard that Wi-Fi 6 could connect everyone in a football stadium, similar to 5G, right, or 4G. So we have maybe even competition, and I don't know how Bluetooth, what the limits are there. But will there be use cases in the future that have to use cellular, or do we even have alternatives there, technology-wise?
I always say there's alternatives. There's always alternatives, and we see that today. You know, especially on cellular IT, there are clear alternatives today, where IPR is not so much of an issue. You can always argue that some technology is better. Cellular IT is very good, you know, but it is a competition for the same kind of devices with technologies that is maybe simpler, but solves the same problem and has significantly easier IPR situation.
Understood. So what the worst case scenario, what could happen to these SEP owners? They don't find a solution. You guys look for alternatives. There is an alternative that does work, and you know they end up not selling anything. On the other hand, it's kind of also path dependent. You also invested in cellular technology, so you're also going that route, right? So it's not as easy just shifting from A to B, right?
No. I mean, it is some of the same patent holders that you know we hope could come up with some programs and some solutions. It's the same people who are selling the technology to enable this thing, and. I mean, we want to find solutions for customers. We think there's great technologies. We just have to find solutions that customers can deal with, that are simple to deal with, that doesn't provide, you know, I guess what you call economic disfavor or something like that. It needs to be simple. And if it is simple and it is reasonable, there's money to be made by everyone.
Right. Well understood. So we are now in a very difficult situation, and also going back to you, Marianne, again. Let's say there would be a silver bullet solution. In your opinion, what should we do now? Who should get together? Who should find that solution? Who should solve it? Is it the courts? Is it politics? Is it departments of justice, or the European, you know, competition authorities? Who are the ones who should act now? Is it the industry itself? Should they self-regulate? What is your opinion?
Thank you for that question. It's not an easy one to answer. I can definitely say what I think, and I definitely think it's not going to be solved dragging everyone through court for many years. That's not the way to handle it. It's not going to solve anything. I think that we need to come up with a solution that is viable for IoT. I think that SEP owners and licensees, we need to compromise. We need to find a solution that we can provide fully licensed products to our customers. And if that's going to be through a license for a component manufacturer that has a royalty based on the end product to start with, and then when we see that, you know, the verticals and it's not a viable solution, it's not a business case that flies into the IoT, then we change it and we adapt, and we see that, you know, if it's not going that well, we have to pivot and move forward and find other solution. But I have great hopes for IoT and SEP licensing. I don't think it's going to be, I think we're going to see solutions. And I think that when I talk to some of the major SEP owners, it's not a reluctance to license and to earn money. That's obviously not the case. It's just to find the right royalty and the right range where we can all agree.
Well understood. Maybe one thing that I'm always curious about, who's really at risk today. So I see all the OEMs and litigation, not the chip manufacturers. So are you yet in a comfortable situation and you let those OEMs solve it and you're not part of litigation, at least, you know? Or are you also a bit worried about being part of litigation at some point?
of course, we're worried about litigation. It's a very costly affair, and we. I actually represent the legal department in Nordic. I have recently hired 2 lawyers to work with me, but I really hope that they can work on the operational part of the business and getting products out to our customers and getting great software out there for ease of use of our products. But yeah, I'm worried about customers being sued, of course, and coming back to Nordic, but we were, as I said earlier, we were very proactive when we wanted to launch our cellular product. So we renegotiated all of our agreements. We don't have liability to hold our customers harmless for any patent infringement that is related to 4G. And I think that, so that enables us to now say that, we can't indemnify you. We can find a solution. We will help to find a solution for you, for our customers. And hopefully that, and I think that, my experience the last 6 months is that our customers are also eager to let us handle it, but it's not an unwillingness to pay for the IP. And I think that you saw from the poll that you had, 45% said that 5 cents is reasonable, 30% said $1 is reasonable. I think that we will be able to find a solution with our consistent and persistence with the SEP owners and the pool to find a solution that can help our customers also avoid the court system.
Yeah, I see. So it's going to be an exciting times we're in right now, and I think we all observed that with great interest. And also our audience has been discussing a bit and chatting along since we've been starting to talk. For example, I just published also the live poll. We have over 45% that say it should be 0.5% US dollars, 30% $1. So a large majority goes for the lower pricing edge, and we had some chats here that even the $0.5 is too high. So we should have added maybe 10 cents or even lower. So we have maybe even people that think that is a fair price. And I would like to then open it up also to some of our audiences and people that did put questions in the chat. If you, Svein-Egil and Marianne, are open to that, I'll invite my colleague Emma to read some of those questions to you guys, to hear what everyone has to say. And everyone who has not posted a question but would like to ask our interviewer something, please feel free to do that now. Ask anything, and we'll be happy to read it. But Emma, would you please support this and read one of the questions?
Yes, we have a couple of questions coming in. So the first one here, in your opinion, has the IoT industry been seeing demand letters? Are they coming from patent pools, from individual owners, or from both?
Can you repeat the question, Emma, if we've seen?
Yeah, so has the IoT industry been seeing demand letters? Are they coming in from pools, individual owners, or both?
That's well, we have seen. I think it's one case, but I think that's. I don't want to say what kind of sector that is in, but I've seen one case where one of our customers have been faced with a claim, and that's public, I think. So I'm not going to, go further into that.
Okay, so the person that asked that question realizes it's a tough one. I think they just really wanted a general comment or opinion as to whether that was something that you were seeing. So I think you answered the question, even though it was a tough one. Okay, the second one here, this goes back to a previous conversation, talking about including fees or IPR fees within the product or the component. The question is, have you considered offering two options for your customers? One with a price which is not licensed to the SEPs, does not contain a license for the SEPs, and one with a price which does include all of the IPR or the SEP licensing. Is that something that you've considered historically?
Yes, that is something we have considered, but then that was under the assumption that we would be licensed. So it's impossible for us to price in any, what would be the difference when we don't know what the end user, as long as the royalty is based on the end product, it's not possible for us to price in the risk of royalties into our product.
Right. Tied into that, I think, tied into your response there, another question is saying, just asking, this is a question for both of you, whether your customer, does your customer easily accept easily that you're not liable for your chips infringing a third party's IPR? Is that something that they understand or accept?
No. That's okay. Very clear answer. No, so I've spent whole summer supporting my sales team, explaining to our customers in the IoT area that we're not licensed, and there are no programs to license license our system in package. They find it strange, of course, because it's normal and it's an obligation for a component manufacturer under most patent laws to have all IPR included, and now it's more like we're not able to provide that for our customers, and they also start to ask questions. So, what are you proposing that we should do this ourselves? And currently there are no programs for our customers either. So hopefully there will be some programs coming up soon that will solve the issue, or that we would be able to solve this for them.
And just to add to what Marianne says is that, there are competition out there that will provide some kind of level of indemnification, but what that is in reality, we are uncertain, because there isn't something you can indemnify. But I have a story about this, and there's more to that. Is I often talk to my kid, which is 10 years old, when he comes back and says, "It ain't fair," he says. I said, "Life ain't fair. Get used to it." But one of the things that really is hard here is that big companies are telling Nordic Semiconductor, which is a small player, you have to indemnify us, and they know very perfectly well that we can't, and that feels very, very unfair.
Mm-hmm. I completely see that.
And also some of that story, I just want to add to that I told you previously about the distribution agreements. They don't differentiate between cellular products and other products. And for Bluetooth, for example, we have always been able to hold our customers harmless from patent infringement. And now we can't in the cellular business, but I know there has to be, and I know of other companies in the industry who are stuck with these agreements where they have an obligation to indemnify their customers, and they're not getting away from that. When the industry changes and stop licensing component manufacturers, we still have that obligation under law and under contract, and we are stuck with all the explanation, and it's very time consuming and frustrating not to be able to continue that, to supply that for our customers.
Right. This discussion is creating a lot of interest here from our audience, with people I think coming to the fore with different sorts of solutions and suggestions for how to solve some of these challenges that you're talking about. One question that seems to have been asked a few times here it goes like this. So patent owners have created pools to license out intellectual property. Have you considered forming your own licensee pool to to take licenses where you're actually creating the pool yourselves, or in perhaps even in partnership with other entities? Is that something you've thought about?
No, so a pool of licensees.
So you create your own patent pool. I think from one of the polls, it was shown that it seems that the audience is favouring the creation of patent pools. Would patent pools help solve some of the problems that you're facing, or especially if it was one that was just one that you yourself created?
Yeah, no, we haven't thought about that. And then my instinct tells me that's going to be, so what the intent would be behind forming such a pool was to have leverage to negotiate with the SEP owners. And I think that would cause some antitrust issues just right off the back. That's something that comes to mind, but it's an interesting thought. I will note it down.
Okay.
Maybe just one follow-up here from my end. So we know there is licensee aggregators out there already, like RPX, and there's even a deal of a licensee pool or aggregator with a license pool of licensors. So RPX and Cisco have a solution there. So there are, first examples where that worked out in the industry. Of course, maybe a less debated technology there, but is this something, just theoretically that could be a solution?
Would that provide our customers with a license tomorrow?
Yeah, that's a good question. It would, I think, for sure make a lot of potential contracts and negotiations just being one between that aggregated licensee and the aggregated licensor. So in theory, we have just two parties, right? Question is, of course, who is within the licensees? Is it the component level people or the OEMs or everyone? That will be the question, right?
Exactly, and then that would have to assume that the licensors will be willing to license the component manufacturers if we were a part of that pool.
If that is a solution, yeah. But sorry, I just wanted to have that follow-up. Emma, please go ahead.
No, that's absolutely fine. There are a couple of questions here that I think are more asking for your opinion, where you feel comfortable in sharing it generally. But obviously, please steer away from anything that you can't talk about. So question here, what has been the answer of the known 5G SEP owners to your license request?
I'm not, can you repeat that question? What
has been the answer of the known 5G SEP owners to your license request? So when you've been in conversation with the SEP owners, specifically this mentions 5G, what's been their reaction to your request, or in your dealings with them, with your conversations or negotiations with them?
Yeah, so currently there's not, if we talk about licensing platforms for 4G now, there's definitely not anything for 5G that I know about. I haven't had that discussions about 5G yet either. If we do get a license to 4G, I hope that we'll have provisions that will enable that to switch over to 5G when that time comes.
Right.
I think the question was in the direction, Marianne. I think you did try to get access to SEPs, right? But you have not, there was no offering, or what was the reaction? If you can share, of course, only, what was the reaction of, pools or the SEP owners when you tried to say, hey, do you have an offering?
Well, the reaction is that we don't have any license program for you on your components, but we will license your customer. And
okay, understood. So similar as we've seen it with the examples of automotive industry litigation. Understood. Great. Emma, you go ahead, please.
Yeah, okay. So let's take the second opinion question that came in. Maybe given time, this might be the last question here. What's your opinion of the latest court decision in Germany, the United Kingdom, and the USA that enables SEP owners to license on an OEM level without any antitrust behavior in it?
I don't have an answer for that. On the I mean, from a legal perspective, that this is what I will say. So that I believe that our SIP should be licensed. This is the smallest component that implements NB-IoT and LTE-M, and here are the patents. The standard essential patents are enabled and included in this small SIP. So this is what we should be. We should get a license with a royalty that is based on this product. And we could then make or sell licensed products to all our customers.
Yep, that makes sense. Let's see, how are we doing for time? We've got a couple of minutes. Do we feel like answering one more here?
Try maybe one more. I think we can do one more if you are up to it, Svein-Egil and Marianne, and then we close down for today.
We'll do our best.
All right. Let's see if this says. This is another. I think another general one. Within your industry, how far away is your need for 5G capability? Is 4G, 3G sufficient for the next few years, or are you seeing that changing anytime soon?
Just when you think about specifically on our cellular IoT product that implements the two standards, LTE-M and NB-IoT, and those two standards are the standard that is being moved from 4G and into 5G and becomes the 5G standard for massive machine type communication. So what I say right now is we support 4G and 5G with the existing products. That's pretty convenient, I have to say, but we are there right now. But that's based upon 4G technology, but it's migrating into 5G.
That's a great answer, and I think that's a succinct way of wrapping up the Q&A here for today.
Great, then thank you so much, Emma. So my take on the whole discussion with you too, and thank you very much for joining. This was really great to have you guys as experts in your views in this panel. But I see there is currently no offering. Maybe also my take on the latest Department of Justice decision is basically yes. Avanci can offer, and only their offer to the OEMs. It's just an offer, right? It's not an offer for you guys, obviously. So that is, as to antitrust, okay, but it doesn't solve anything for you because there is just no offer on the table. And that's, I think, as to me at least, my take on this conversation. We don't have a solution. There's no way for you to get a license. And we will have to see in the future how that will work out for you, for your customers. What we do hope, of course, you spend so much money on R&D and make our lives interconnected, and your chips enable things that make our lives easier, or at least supposedly when I buy all these great products. So we hope you keep investing in that despite all of these difficulties. But again, guys, thank you for being here, for answering all these difficult questions. We will observe what's going on in the future. And yes, thank you so much for joining, and all our participants for also answering the poll questions, coming up with other questions to Svein-Egil and Marianne. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us, Tim.
Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. You have a great evening, or in the US, a great day. Take care. Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.